everybody. It's me, Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie, and welcome to another episode of the all-new But Is It Power Pop? This is the series that I actually began to build an audience with many years ago here on YouTube. But don't go back and watch those because I was purple, I didn't play music, and they're just, oh my gosh, they're humiliating. But hey, I'm going to leave them up anyway. But this is a show very much like my 80s album series where I talk about 5 albums and I let you know whether I think they are power pop or not. You will hear about the bands and you will hear some of the music. So let's dive right in. Sure, it's a good album, but is it power pop? First album I'm going to talk about came out in 1981. It is the self-titled full-length album by the Plimsouls. Of course, the Plimsouls are closely associated with the power pop scene in LA. Peter Case came from The Nerves, a band that also featured Paul Collins and Jack Lee. They are the band responsible for the song Hanging on the Telephone that Blondie covered. After the trio split, Jack Lee went solo, Paul Collins formed the Beat, and Peter Case formed the Plimsouls. First thing they put out was an EP called 0 Hour. I remember hearing the title track and the song Great Big World on Rodney on the Rock when that record first came out. And I went all over town because it was an independent release and I needed that in my collection. That came out in 1980. They signed to Planet Records and they put out their self-titled debut in 1981. And is it power pop? Oh, I'd say 85% of it is. It's great. Peter Case, great songwriter. There's Peter Case on guitar and vocals, Eddie Munoz on lead guitar, Dave Pajoa on bass guitar, and Lou Ramirez on drums. And this was a tight, wonderful band, but they were also very much influenced by blues and rhythm and blues music. So you're going to hear a horn section, you're going to hear an Otis Redding cover, things like that. They were a well-rounded, great rock, rhythm and blues power pop band. And their greatest moments, in my opinion, are the power pop songs. So that's why I'm saying that I'd say 85% of their material is power pop. In fact, their song Now was probably one of the greatest power pop singles of all time. If you want to know what power pop is all about, just listen to the Plimsouls Now. In fact, I'm going to play you some snippets of what I consider some of the finest power pop moments from the self-titled album by the Plimsouls, released in 1981.
'Cause I need you now. I need your love tonight. I can't wait. 'Cause the time has come. Oh yeah, and I need you. They'll never take this night away. It's yours and mine until the day's alright. For one night, we'll never the everyday things get me down. Gonna change some things around. I get the same thing every day. Everyday things. Everyday things. So hush, yeah, hush. Don't wanna talk too much. Hush, I said hush. Don't wanna talk, don't wanna talk. It's getting late now, it's time to go. It's over the top now, it's out of control. It's just a matter of time till the 0 hour. Till the 0 hour. Till the 0 hour. Until the 0.
Sure, it's a good album, but is it power pop? Next album I'm going to talk about came out almost a decade later. The album is called Space Flower and the group is the Wild Swans. This is a Liverpudlian band, not associated with power pop, but, they were around in the early 80s or late 70s, early 80s, and they were led by a gentleman by the name of Paul Simpson. I think the band had only put out like one single before they split. Eventually, Paul Simpson put together the Wild Swans again in the late 80s. But see, the thing is he was also in a band called Care with Ian Brody, who eventually later formed the Lightning Seeds, and he's producer of The Stars. So when the Wild Swans came back with their album in 1990 called Space Flower, it was completely different from what came before. Not only did the album reunite Paul Simpson and Ian Brody, because Ian Brody produced the album, it also brought in 2 members of the Icicle Works, Ian McNabb on guitar and backing vocals, and Chris Sherrick on drums, and they have a bass player named Joe Fearon. And this album, it's a little bit of Britpop, psychedelic, Manchester baggy, and just great guitar pop. I mean, this is something, it's more power pop adjacent, but this is the kind of album that power pop bands clamor for. There's great songs on this album, and a bunch of them have like food references, melting blue delicious, chocolate bubblegum, things like that. It's a really fun album, and you should really check it out. The Wild Swans, Space Flower from 1990.
She's my love flavored, melting blue, delicious. Yeah, yeah, she's love flavored, melting blue, delicious. She's candy coated, she's honey toasted. It tastes like Tuesday everywhere she goes. Oh, how could I tell? I'm always last to know. Is heaven on high? I'm down so low. Immaculate lies pale and dark. Chocolate bubble gum. Love you. Chocolate bubble gum.
Sure, it's a good album, but is it power pop? Now let's talk about one of the most overlooked power pop bands ever. It's a band called The Keys. This is a band that was led by Drew Barfield, and the album was produced by Joe Jackson. You could hear it in that tinny 60s sound, and it actually is just a wonderful album. This sounds like it could have been recorded in the 60s, the 70s. It's just full of great songs. Interesting thing here is the drummer of this band had formerly been in Wings. His name is Jeff Britton, and he played on Junior's Farm and Sally G around that period, 74, I believe. But by 1981, he was a member of The Keys. Now, Drew Barfield, great pop singer-songwriter. He's currently in a band right now with blue-eyed soul vocalist Paul Young. That band is called Los Pacaminos, and they play a British version of American Tex-Mex, and it's really fun. But when he put out this Keys album, every power pop fan fell in love with it. It is so amazing, filled to the brim with great 60s influence songs, but it deserves to be reissued on CD. But right now, you're going to get to listen to The Keys and the album called The Keys Album from 1981.
Just hold my hand and wait a minute. Can't you feel my heartbeat? 'Cause you're standing in it. Just give me that one good reason to stop. Just give me that one good reason, why not? Just give me that one good reason to stop. Just give me that one good reason, why not? Just give me that. If it's not too much, we could keep in touch. I could help you through the things you do when I'm not dreaming. I could use my charms. Oh, 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 oh. Look what wasting money's done. Oh, 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 oh,
it's a good album, but is it power pop? Next up, one of your favorite 60s vocalists, Peter Noone, and his new wave power pop band called the Tremblers. They put out an album called Twice Nightly, and the album was executive produced by Bruce Johnston from the Beach Boys. And there's a couple songs that were co-written with Stan Lynch from Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers at that time. There's a gentleman by the name of Robert Williams. Now, I did a little bit of searching on this, and it says he also performed under the name Roger Prescott, or maybe Roger Prescott performed under the name Robert Williams. Roger Prescott was a member of a band called The Pop. And you'll probably see them on a future episode of this or my 80s show. I can't verify that. Maybe Discogs and other sources got that mixed up. But you know what? That's pretty cool to talk about. Anyway, this Tremblers album was definitely very interesting. Almost every song was co-written by Peter Noone, except one track, and that is their cover of Elvis Costello and the Attractions' Green Shirt. It's a really fun album. You should definitely check it out. The Tremblers, featuring Peter Noone, Twice Nightly, released in 1980.
They're always telling you that you can't do that. They keep insisting that you can't do that. Can't take the fun of them knows what you can't do that. They tell me that you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't do that. Was she someone's private secretary? Was she someone special, blue-eyed girl? She'd be in our dreams, and we both agreed. We both agreed. She was something else. All I really want is just a piece of your time. All I want to do is get inside your mind. But what I'm thinking is, wouldn't I? How shouldn't I? Couldn't I fall in love just this one time? Wouldn't I? How shouldn't I? Couldn't I fall in love just once? That's your teeth and you flirt, and you shine all the buttons on your green shirt. You can please yourself, but somebody's gonna get it. You can please yourself, but somebody's gonna get it. You better send a begging letter to the big investigation, 'cause somebody put his fingerprints all over my imagination.
Sure, it's a good album, but is it power pop? And then finally, I'm going to talk about a band called Liverpool Echo. Their sole album came out in 1973. Now, this album is a complete homage to the Mersey beat sounds of the Beatles, basically the early to mid 60s, and very much like the first half of Utopia's To Face the Music or the first half of the Ruddles. The two main members of the band were Brian Enge and a gentleman by the name of Martin Briley. Now, Martin Briley had a hit in the 80s called Salt of My Tears. Sounds nothing like Liverpool Echo, but this Liverpool Echo, back in 1973, sure, you had Badfinger, you had the Raspberries. This is, in my opinion, pure power pop from 1973. Even the production sounds like it came from the 60s. It's a really, really wonderful album. You should definitely check it out. In fact, I'm going to help you check it out right now because I'm going to play a little bit of Liverpool Echo, the self-titled album from 1973.
This is the end of a beautiful friendship, but there is no reason to cry, 'cause it's the start of a love that will last just as long as there's birds in the sky. I will repeat, eventually, lovers before long. You might as well surrender. Don't you know I've been lying, trying to save my life, breaking up inside. Now I can't deny that I love you. say our love was hide and seek, and you never come home.
I know tomorrow will never come, my friend. I know today will never end. Seems like today will never end.
Well, that's it for this episode of But Is It Power Pop? I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed some of these bands. Maybe you discovered something new. Maybe I reminded you about something. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. Remember to like, comment, share, subscribe. Ring that bell for future notifications. And until the next time, remember me. I'm Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie.
And Sharona came up like not too long into our playing clubs. It might have been within a month or so.
Well, I'm sure you've been asked this a million times, but I've always wondered, did the song come before the beat or did the beat come before the song?
Well, the riff came first.
Okay.
The riff, I came up with the riff. I was inspired by the drum breakdown and Pump It Up.
Mm-hmm.
I just loved this kind of herky jerk staccato, unusual feeling. It just felt like, everything about that song was just pedal to the metal,
Yeah.